The Golem is the new film from the Paz brothers, whose previous effort was Jerusalem, which I never did see. I know a lot of people hated it. I think I threw it on for a minute. I didn't watch it. I don't remember why I shut it off, but yeah, I never did see it, so I can't speak to that film, but I can speak to this film. So this film is set in 1600 Lithuania. There's a plague sweeping the countryside, and there's only one township that seems to be unaffected by this plague, and the plague is starting to be blamed on them by the plague doctors that are there taking care of the sick and getting rid of the mass amounts of bodies that are starting to pile up. The woman, in a desperate attempt to try to protect her people, summons a golem. So now the golem is folklore that I am completely unfamiliar with. So I can't really speak to the merits of its storytelling in that way. The only golem that I'm familiar with is the one from Lord of the Rings, because I'm a fucking Rings fanatic. And so when I hear the golem, of course, I'm going to think Smeagol. But I think that this film is very visually cool. The cinematography is great. You don't get a lot of period piece horror. It's something I've talked about on my channel a lot. I'd love to see period piece horror starting from like the 1800s, especially like Western horror. Oh man, give me some more Western horror. I think that's great. But even before that, we just never see it. Of course, a lot of the times because horror is very low budget and period piece horror can be expensive. But yes, it definitely succeeds in cinematography. I think that the acting is very solid. Some places where it fails for me. Well, there's a decent amount of CGI, especially when it comes to the gore. And there's some kills in this that are reminiscent of the new Suspiria. And I wish I would have liked that more, but because of the poor CGI, it was one of those rolling of the eyes, like, fuck, this could have been awesome in those sequences, but it's unfortunately downplayed by the horrendous CGI in moments. Now, not all of it is, so some of it is fine, and some of it just isn't, as I had said. Another issue with the film is some editing mistakes, I feel, because there are certain things that happen in the movie, and I feel like the information that these characters gained only could have been gained in scenes that are not in the film. And it happens a couple times where you're like, and how does she know that? Like, that's a giant frickin' leap here. Like, where did you gather this information? Like, I'm curious. So it has to be editing mistakes there, but and a little bit of the pace. It's come to be expected from a period piece set in the 1600s like this that the film is going to be slower. I mean, it's set in a fucking village without electricity, without any cell phones or electronics, anything going on. There's no hustle and bustle of the modern world in it, so things are expected to be slowed down. But there are some moments that drag. Overall, I liked the movie. I liked the play on the folklore. I liked the direction that everything was going. I loved the look of the plague doctors. I thought they were fucking creepy and menacing. The look of the film was very drab, very drained of color. I always like that with these kinds of movies. It felt authentic for the time, even though, of course, I wasn't there to confirm. It's just, it's got a very mute color palette. Which always works for films like these things. This world, this village and everything feels lived in. I don't know what the budget of this was, but I'm sure it's low budget, and I think they did a pretty damn effective job considering what they had. I liked the aesthetics of it. I thought that things looked fairly realistic for the time period in which it was set. The actors did a very fine job of portraying their characters, and I wish I had cared more for characters, though. But we do get a lot of realistic stuff going on from the time. Women know their place, and the religious aspects of the Judaism in this, or is that correct? Judaism? I think that's right. I'll get blown up on that one. You're mixing your religions, man, you piece of shit. Now you've offended everyone. I think that's right. But yeah, anyway. I just, when I was watching this, it felt very realistic in that sense. And this woman has to listen in on what the men are talking about by sneaking into the basement and just listening up from. And then when, you know, she says something later, like, how could you possibly know, woman? Like, ugh, it's so gross. It's just so gross to be reminded. I mean, it's not like it doesn't still happen in the world to this day in other countries, but it's, you know, as an American, I'm very far from that. And it's just disgusting. I can't stand that shit. It's so fucking moronic. But yeah, it's a good flick. I think if you're into period piece horror and the folklore of the Golem is something that appeals to you, this is a pretty cool little flick. Ditch the CGI, edit back in the scenes to explain how these people know what they know. And I think we'd have a much better film here that I'd be, you know, giving a huge thumbs up to. But because of those things, it was just a good movie. I liked it. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. So there you go. It's rentable on VOD. Let me know if you check it out. And don't hit me too hard for not knowing the difference between fucking religions. That ain't my thing. Movies are my thing. As long as I get those right, we're all good. Adios.